Good morning, friends and family of the internet. Hi, guys. Welcome back to Starkey Farmstead. So my name is Samantha. I'm the owner-operator of a 2-acre farmstead here in Southeast Louisiana, folks. And one of the things that I have to contend with every year from spring to fall are ticks. Now, the interesting thing is what the military and the CIA has done with these ticks. So as you come on, hit the like button, drop over in comments, tell me who you are, where you are watching from, and have you ever been bitten by a tick? Please make sure you're still subscribed. YouTube has jokes. Their favorite thing to do is delete your comments and unsubscribe you at a daunting amount. It's ridiculous, but we have to deal with what we've got. All right, folks. So most of us at this point have heard the stories that the United States military weaponized tick-borne diseases. There's some proof to that. Actually, there's a lot of proof to that. One thing that I find really interesting is that New Jersey has a state representative that has been fighting to get the truth out about tick-borne illnesses for several years now. So congratulations, New Jersey. Your U.S. Congressman, Chris Smith, has been fighting to get out the information about what the military has done with tick-borne diseases. New legislation. Now, this was written July 16th of 2025. It's a press release. It says new legislation to reauthorize the nation's federal efforts to fight Lyme disease was announced yesterday on Capitol Hill, known as the Tick Act. The bill, authored by Representative Chris Smith, a Republican from New Jersey, with lead sponsors Lloyd Doggett, Democrat, Texas, Thomas Keene Jr., Republican, New Jersey, Paul Tonko, Democrat, New York, will provide continued funding for Lyme disease research at the Centers for Disease Control. It says Senator Susan Collins is the author of this legislation in the U.S. Senate. Now, it says with Austin summers now stretching from April through November and temperatures rising across the country, tick-related illnesses like Lyme disease are on the rise. The Tick Act is an important recommitment to our investment in research, education, treatment, and prevention of these dreaded diseases. Now, Chris Smith is also the same congressman who actually back in 2019 began requesting the military to give up their information on Lyme disease, and they made fun of him. Okay. This is a Newsweek article. It says Pentagon may have released weaponized ticks that help spread Lyme disease, investigation ordered. This was July 17th of 2019. Good morning, DG. It says last week, the U.S. House of Representatives quietly passed a bill requiring the Inspector General of the Department of Defense to conduct a review into whether the Pentagon experimented with ticks and other blood-sucking insects for use as biological weapons between the years in 1950 and 1975. If the Inspector General finds that such experiments occurred, then according to the bill, they must provide the House and Senate Armed Services Committee with a report on the scope of the research and whether any ticks or insects used in such experiments were released outside of any laboratory by accident or by experimental design. It says this amendment was put forward by Representative Chris Smith, a Republican from New Jersey, who was inspired by several books and articles claiming that the U.S. government had conducted research at facilities such as Fort Dietrich. Boy, have we talked about that, haven't we? And Plum Island. However, some Lyme disease experts are warning that Smith's claims should be viewed with plenty of caution. Of course they would, right? Like, of course they would. They want to cover. They always want to cover what they're doing with the darkness. If you know anything about the Cold War, if you know anything about how weather modification and weather warfare was being, good morning, solar flare, introduced to the world, then you understand that this is not a far-fetch and that there is ample evidence that they actually did this. So let's get into it, folks. First, I want to show you what is happening with ticks in America this year. So if you're grossed out by insects, I apologize ahead of time, because I'm going to tell you now, this is not pretty.
It's on the rise across the country. This July, the CDC is reporting the highest number of tick-related ER visits since 2017. Tonight, Ozark's first Becky Gardner joins us in the studio. And Becky, you talked to two local women today who have recently been diagnosed with a tick-related disease.
Yeah, Bailey, the people I spoke to told me they got their official diagnosis recently, with medical professionals in the area being on the lookout after a spike in tick-related diseases.
This summer, I was just like, I need to figure this out before I rip my skin off. It's so bad.
Natalie Moore got diagnosed with alpha-gal in May, a potentially life-threatening allergy and tick-borne disease produced in most mammals but not in humans. Tick saliva contains alpha-gal and transfers to humans through tick bites. While she was diagnosed a few months ago, she's had symptoms for 3 years.
It's contact dermatitis. They said strep at one point because of the way the rash felt. And I went to the ER multiple times, and steroids after steroids, and it's like nothing helped.
Emma Schraub got diagnosed in March with symptoms starting 9 months ago. She said she believes it goes undiagnosed due to the delayed reaction in sourcing the cause.
It's very overwhelming and honestly kind of depressing in the beginning, because I think you realize how much of your diet includes mammal. It really is not clearly labeled on food products.
Moore tells me while eating out with an allergy is always a risk, she's been able to find places that prioritize her allergy, such as Papo's Pizza and 14 Mill Market.
Any guests coming in asking specifically, hey, do you have any alpha-gal options? We have our fresh pokey. Every single item on their menu is alpha-gal friendly. Their Uptown Hog is all their chicken is cooked specifically on a chicken-only smoker.
Schraub says the allergy is not just to food.
I have switched out all my medications, all my makeup, laundry detergent.
Most people just think red meat, but it's more than just red meat.
And while the diagnosis is isolating, she's found support on Facebook groups.
It's a community because they're like, oh, I know exactly what you're going through. Here are my favorite things.
To combat the confusion that comes with this allergy, the Alpha-Gal Inclusion Act was introduced back in February, and if passed, alpha-gal would be added to the list of major food allergens and would be added to food label packages. Bailey?
All right, so you, like me, at first I was like, alpha-gal, like, what is this? What is this? They're always coming up with new allergies. So there's actually a disease that certain ticks, when they bite you, you can never eat red meat again. That's beef, lamb, pork, anything that's mammal. Your body will go into total shutdown when you ingest. So you can't even eat chicken that was cooked on a grill where beef ribs had been cooked. Guys, that's demonic. Understand what I'm telling you. That's man-made. There is nothing natural in this world that would cause you to have an allergy to food, okay? It's the same thing with gluten. I'm a farmer. On top of that, I'm an organic farmer. And let me tell you what the scientists won't tell you. You aren't allergic to gluten. You're allergic to glyphosate, which is what they spray on the wheat, corn, the barley. Glyphosate is like a pesticide, fungicide, everything aside. It's to kill. And when you ingest food that has been heavily sprayed with this toxic chemical, your body rejects it. So these ticks are biting people, and now they can't have red meat. Our bodies were made to ingest vegetables and meat. When you find all of a sudden that you can't eat something that the Lord created for you, it has got something to do with the Antichrist system every single time. Seems to have started on Martha's Vineyard, filled with Yankees who play with games with humans, kind of. Yeah. So let's keep going, because I'm going to blow your mind on what's happening with ticks this year in America.
With all this rain we've been having, Northwestern Hospital says they're seeing an increase in patients getting sick from ticks.
It comes as the CDC says this is shaping up to be one of the worst tick seasons in years. Our Marissa Sulik spoke with doctors about why these cases keep growing. Marissa?
Joe and Erica, multiple doctors say this is because of climate change, and this is something we reported months ago, but now we're seeing how that corresponds to emergency room visits here in Chicago and the rest of the Midwest. Rain and humidity are the perfect storm for pests like ticks to thrive. Dr. Alfredo Manalora at St. Anthony's Hospital says he, along with other doctors, anticipate seeing more patients with tick bites this summer.
It's one of those things that we expect, especially as the warm months continue and the exposures become more cumulative.
CDC data shows in 2023, out of 100,000 emergency room visits in the Midwest, 51 patients were going in for tick bites. That number went up to 56 last year and is now already at 85 this year. The reason behind it, doctors say, are environmental factors.
Milder winters, wetter springs, which means for longer tick breeding seasons. We're also seeing ticks move into geographic areas where we have not seen them before.
Doctors say ticks transmit more viruses and diseases than any other animal in the world. So this is a serious public health concern. People get Lyme disease, Rocky Mountain spotted fever, and a slew of other illnesses.
I think the main thing that patients and the public need to know is if you've been bitten by a tick, it could carry a condition, and that condition is typically a febrile condition. So you may have fevers, you may have a rash, you may have joint pains.
This year already, 26 people in Cook County have been diagnosed with Lyme disease. 58 people had it last year. Dr. Menelora says while ticks can bite people in the city, they are more prevalent in Wisconsin, Indiana, and Michigan, or wooded areas. He's now reminding people to wear clothes that cover arms and legs, do a tick check, and take a shower when you are home. If you find a tick on you, use tweezers to take it out.
If we protect ourselves and take off.
With all this rain we've been having, Northwestern Hospital.
Okay, now did you catch that? With all this rain we're having, there's an uptick in tick bites. Don't you love how they play with words? There's an uptick. Okay, so there is an uptick. The reason is that we know that they are geoengineering and weather modifying the weather. I showed you proof on the live yesterday. They came out and they admitted it in Texas. Yes, we can cloud seed. Yes, we can do these things. Good morning, everyone. We know that the government during the Cold War manufactured bioweapons with ticks. So let's put the puzzle together. Let's do it. Weather modification, click. Bioweapons of blood-sucking insects, mosquitoes, fleas, ticks, click. Control of humans. Hey, let me call you back. I'm working. I'll call you right back. So just think of it like that. Think of it as a puzzle. You're clicking the pieces in place, folks. All right. You have ticks, you have fleas, you have weather modification. They are creating the perfect environment for pests to thrive. Yeah, ticks. I mean, listen to me, folks. How did the Black Plague happen? Fleas on rats. Fleas on rats. Look it up. How did people die on ships? The rats brought fleas with diseases onto ships, and it would kill the sailors.
Republican congressman from New Jersey wants the Pentagon to reveal whether it experimented on ticks with the goal of turning them into weapons and whether this led to the spread of Lyme disease in the U.S. Fox News national correspondent Jennifer Griffin has more.
Borrelia burgdorferi, known to millions as Lyme disease, infects more than 300,000 Americans a year. It is spread by infected deer ticks. Not treated, it could lead to neurological damage. Now lawmakers want to know, where did infected ticks come from, and is the Pentagon to blame? Congressman Chris Smith points to a secret Army bioweapons program to weaponize ticks in the 1950s.
Bioweapon specialists stuffed ticks with pathogens to cause severe disability, disease, even death to potential enemies.
Army labs like Plum Island and Fort Dietrich, not far from the largest concentration of Lyme cases, were capable of breeding millions of bugs a month. The link was first outlined by Stanford's Chris Newby, who wrote about it in Bitten, The Secret History of Lyme Disease and Biological Weapons. She interviewed William Bergdorfer, who worked for the U.S. military in the 50s growing microbes inside ticks.
They experimented on ticks that could live in cold climates for campaigns against the Russians.
Bergdorfer, for whom Lyme disease was named in 1982, suffered from late-stage Parkinson's. He hinted before he died that the outbreak may have been a bioweapons experiment run amok.
The concern now is that there might have been accidental leaks and exposures, releases.
Smith sponsored.
In case you didn't see what that said on that paper, let me read this to you. I wondered why.
Might have been accidental leaks.
Hold on.
Late-stage Parkinson's. He hinted before.
I wondered why somebody didn't do something. Then I realized that I am somebody. Folks, let that sink in. Many of you on here often ask me, well, what are we going to do now? Well, what are you going to do? I know what I'm doing. I'm collecting people from around the world and putting them into groups on Zooms. We provide you a newsletter. We're helping you learn your state constitution. If you'd like to join that, you can look at the top of comments at the end of the live, donate whatever you'd like. Send me your email and I'll get you in one of those Zoom groups and get you the newsletter. We go further, but my question to all of you is, what are you doing? You need to be doing something, whether that's sharing content, whether it's making your own content, whether it's reaching out to your elected officials. But the thing is this, nobody's coming to save us. We have to save ourselves, okay?
Before he died, that the outbreak may have been a bioweapons experiment run amok.
The concern now is that there might have been accidental leaks and exposures, releases.
Smith sponsored an amendment to the Defense Authorization Act that would require the Pentagon's Inspector General to investigate. Newby has been accused by some scientists like Michael Osterholm of concocting a conspiracy theory. Quote, there's just no credible evidence.
I interviewed one person who worked indirectly for the CIA, and he claims he dropped poison ticks on Cuban sugar workers in 1962 as part of the effort against Castro.
Her critics say Bergdorfer may have been confused by his Parkinson's disease.
He felt really guilty about what he did.
I don't think he did, because let me show you what I found last night. I think he knew what he was saying. I think he knew exactly what he had done, Berfendorfer. They did drop ticks on the sugarcane workers. They also, that's not all. In 1997, I found this charges the U.S. in an episode by conspiracy theory. Cuba on Monday accused the United States of sprinkling the island with the larvae of crop-destroying insects in an act of biological aggression. They compliment a bug war. Bug warfare, denounced as ridiculous and without merit by the U.S. State Department, came at UN offices in Geneva under terms of 1972 Biological and Toxic Weapons Convention that marked the first time the treaty has been invoked. Cuba's deputy foreign minister told reporters in Geneva that Havana wants an international investigation of the incident. But Monday's closed-door session before the senioritas to the convention adjourned without action. Listen to me. How many of you have heard about the Havana? I forgot how they word it. It's like the Havana experiment where the CIA was using these frequency weapons on embassy people and stuff like that, and it was making people very sick. That was also Cuba. Then I found this article from 1997 saying that Cuba caught the United States dropping bug larvae over their sugarcane fields, much like they did with the tick-borne disease, the larvae. It says the dispute recalls earlier incidents of Cuban-American hostility, such as in the 1960s when the CIA reportedly considered killing Fidel Castro with an exploding cigar, Havana syndrome, thank you, Diane, or by asking the mafia to put out a contract on the Cuban dictator. It was something out of a former era. In documents filed with the United Nations in New York, Cuba claims to have caught the United States red-handed when the pilot of a Cuban airliner saw a small airplane registered to the U.S. Department releasing a white or grayish mist over the Lenin State Horticulture Farm in Cuba's province on October 21st. 2 months later, the potato crop on the Lenin farm became infested with what Cubans called a plague of thripes, a hardy pest that thrives in subtropical climates. All right, so can they drop things like parasites from the sky? Hell yeah. I've got an article to prove it. Quit thinking that your government can't do it. They have had the ability to stratospheric spray since 1900, 1910. So why would you think that they could not release diseases, parasites, or larvae of pest above and let it float down, folks? It says, the State Department said the American crop duster had permission to fly over Cuba en route to Colombia, where it was to be used in the eradication of illegal narcotics crops. So here's the thing. The U.S. could not deny the plane was there. The U.S. could not deny the chemicals or that there were chemicals on this plane. But they said it was to eradicate illegal crops, right? Narcotics crops. The mist seen by the Cuban airliner crew actually was a smoke signal emitted by the U.S. pilots to alert the airliner to its presence. Nope. They were releasing diseases and pests. Then they go on, the U.S. government goes on and says the plane had no spraying equipment on board, and the tanks normally used for pesticide were filled with fuel for the long flight. Okay, so they contradicted themselves. How could they be in a crop duster and it not have the spraying mechanisms that crop dusters have, for one? Second, they said they were en route to go to Colombia to spray and eradicate illegal narcotic crops. But then they say that they didn't have anything on their plane, that all those tanks were filled with fuel, and that this crop duster couldn't spray anything. Y'all better bet your high knees that the U.S. government eradicated this Cuban farm. It says here that there was the head of the U.S. delegation in Geneva made a 9-page presentation to the convention. All of this will demonstrate that the Cuban allegation that the United States acted deliberately to infest Cuba with an insect pest is false. Cuban officials say the infestation has now spread to corn, bean, pumpkin, cucumber, all throughout Western Cuba, and is proved resistant to any emergency pesticide controls that they had available. Folks, the government, this was in the 90s. They wiped out all of Cuba's crops by spraying one form, and it spread like wildfire. Come on now, America. Come on now. It's terrible that our government does this. Now, I want to talk to you about something else I found very interesting. Some of you have watched me for a long time, and you know that I talk about things like natural cures. Pumpkin seeds can be used to kill tapeworm. All right. That is an American Indian, Native American Indian natural way to kill a tapeworm. Right. Well, I was looking that up last night because I wanted to talk to y'all about how to take care of your bodies with the fact that the government can spray parasites and diseases above our heads and make us sick. Right. So I'm like, well, we need ways to take care of ourselves. Pumpkin seeds can do that. It says, I found an article. I will link all the videos and all the news articles that I go over. I will link that in the description of this video at the end of this video. But I'm looking for, hold on. And then I'm going to talk to you about how antibiotics can kill parasites. All right. I found the information when I Googled, can pumpkin seeds kill tapeworms? The very first thing that popped up was this. Pumpkin seeds cannot remove worms or parasites from your body. This was a US Today fact-checking article, right? It says that U.S. Pharmacopoeia listed pumpkin seeds as an official treatment for parasite elimination from 1863 to 1936 due to its use by Native Americans to treat urinary problems and intestinal issues. But it was removed, and no, pumpkin seeds cannot help you. That's what U.S. News said. Then I found one that says, fact check, false claim that pumpkin seeds can treat worms and parasites in the body. They're lying to you. I found that, and then on PubMed, I found an entire scientific study that was done in 2012. 8 years before USA News put out their fact-checking false on the pumpkin seeds. Scientists tested it, and it is true. It says that adult tapeworms in the upper small intestines of humans, which also cause cysticercosis infection in either humans and or animals, it goes on to say, we assess the curative effect of either pumpkin seeds or I think it's pronounced Archaea nut, A-R-E-C-A, Archaea nut extract. And it goes on to talk about how those two together got rid of the adult tapeworms in, let me see the percentage. It did say there were mild side effects, nausea and dizziness in 46% of patients. It said in control group A treatment of pumpkin seeds alone, 95% of confirmed cases expelled the entire tapeworm. So 75% of people that had just the pumpkin seeds expelled the entire adult tapeworm. Pumpkin seeds, folks. I feed them. I grow organic pumpkins, not for Halloween, for health. If you have prostate problems, pumpkin seeds. So I grow pumpkins, I gather the seeds, I either grind them up or chop them up in a blender, and I sprinkle them on my dog's food. I do it for a week at a time. I do it 3 times a year. I do that to help naturally get rid of any kind of pest or intestinal worms that they have. All right. The reason I learned about pumpkin seeds and tapeworms, I'll tell you the story real fast. I had just gotten my German Shepherd. Most of you know who Hammer is, my best friend, my German. He was 8 months old and he got deathly sick. He was vomiting blood. He was pooping blood. It was during COVID, so I couldn't take him to a vet. Nobody would actually see him. The doctor just ordered some kind of anti-parasitic and handed it through a window to me. They didn't even know what he had. So I called my dad, Papa Sammy and Allie Bug. If you watch me, some of you know my father at 83 does YouTube. I said, Daddy, my dog's dying and I don't know how to help him. And he got very quiet and he said, tell me the symptoms. So I told him. And he said, pumpkin, because that's what he calls me. Daddy needs you to look up what the Native Americans used to get rid of parasites, specifically tapeworms. And I said, Dad, my dog doesn't have tapeworms and I don't need some kooky black magic. I need a cure. He said, Samantha, listen to me. Look it up. So, baby, because I honor my mother and father, I started digging. I made a concoction with pumpkin seeds, and my German Shepherd was healed in a week because the medicine given to me by the doctor through the window did nothing but make him sicker. So I'm just telling you, it's either way. Cynthia said, should you roast them first or use them fresh? I'm going to tell you the truth. Uncooked has more nutrients, but do it any way you can. Look it up for yourself. I am not a doctor. I'm a homesteader. I have a master's in education. I am great at research, but I am not a doctor. But I will share with you what has worked for me and mine. Do you guys remember me telling you to make sure that you have doxycycline in your backup counters because they're good for venom? I realized that when my sister-in-law's dog was bit by a venomous snake under the neck twice, right? I started digging last night. I'm like, okay, God, how in the world is an antibiotic killing a parasite? Because that's two different things, right? That's like saying an antibiotic can kill a virus. It cannot. So how can it kill a parasite? Oops, Sam found it. Doctors kill parasitic worms by poisoning the bacteria in the worm's innards. In some African villages, nearly everyone is infected with a parasitic worm that's remarkably hard to kill. It's resistant to standard anti-worm medications, but researchers have learned that an old antibiotic can vanquish these tiny beasts in a roundabout way. Their parasites are stuffed with a specific type of bacteria. Doxycycline is the first drug that has been shown effective in clearing specific types of parasites from the blood of infected people. I'm just saying. It says doxycycline is not very easy to administer as a mass drug treatment since it absolutely cannot be given to pregnant women or children under the age of 12. Second, courses shorter than 4 weeks have been not effective. So if you're talking about having to take it for long periods of times, doxycycline has to be given for long periods, 4 weeks at a time. All right. So I use a natural preventative for heartworms on all 3 of my dogs. I have a 10-year-old dog, a 6-year-old dog, a 2-year-old dog. Took them all to the vet for a checkup. The 10-year-old dog has never been given a heartworm preventative from the vet, not once in his life. He drew his blood. He looked. There was one on the slide. He goes, nah, You don't have to worry about that. I treat them with iodine. And that's all I'm going to say. I have videos on it. I'm not going to get into it here because I don't want them to interrupt my life. My 6-year-old dog had a few juveniles. So this is what the vet did. We do 4 weeks of doxycycline, then we don't do it. Then we do 4 weeks of doxycycline, then we don't do it. And we're going to do that for 6 months. And it's killing the heartworm juveniles, the few that were in his blood. So I just wanted to share that with you guys because understanding why certain medicines work is very important. Okay, so let's get back to what's going on with these ticks, you guys, because it's not just the ticks, okay? This video is 10 years ago coming out of South America.
With a medical mystery sweeping across Central America, a devastating illness that is destroying the kidneys of young men who work in the sugarcane fields. Bewildering researchers around the world, it has taken the lives of thousands of men and ravaged the region. America's Now correspondent Michelle Begay traveled to Nicaragua and talked to many families who are desperately seeking answers about a disease that has shattered their lives.
In the past 10 years, under the ominous eye of Nicaragua's San Cristobal volcano, an epidemic has been erupting. And for fathers and sons who have been strenuously working these sugarcane fields for more than a century, life is far from sweet. In the last decade, 24,000 men, mostly in their 40s and 50s, have died a slow and debilitating death from an illness whose origin is unknown.
Tanto los hijos que dejó Gabriel y los hijos que dejó el hijo de él, Javier, ninguno de los hijos pueden saber la causa porque sus papás y sus abuelos murieron.
Juan Salgado is one of the victims.
Y quisiéramos que hubiera una solución, pues que hubiera una solución de esto, saber la causa, porque estas personas, amigos, murieron.
The same sickness that took the lives of his friends Gabriel Pulido and his son Javier is now plaguing him. It's called chronic kidney disease, or CKD, and has been branded Central America's mystery illness due to the devastating death toll it's taken on the men of this region's sugar-growing heartland. The mill Juan Salgado works for is located in Chichigalpa, home to the sugarcane that is used for Nicaragua's popular Flor de Caña rum. Studies show 1 of every 4 men in this town, some as young as 19, are showing signs of CKD.
Cuando morimos nosotros, todo nuestro organismo está deshecho.
CKD destroys the ability of the kidney to function, allowing toxins to enter the bloodstream. Headaches, vomiting, and extreme fatigue are symptoms.
Vomitamos la sangre, oramos la sangre, el cuerpo se nos pone todo griestoso, los ojos se nos pone en pura sangre.
High levels of creatinine in a blood test are also a key indicator. A kidney that is working properly would show normal.
Again, I will link all of these videos. What that gentleman said was, when we die, our organs are wrecked. We are vomiting out our blood. Our eyes are filled with blood. Our skin has got big cracks in it. I've shown you proof that the U.S., poured tick larvae all over Cuba's sugarcane fields. What do you think may have happened here? It's exactly what it sounds like. Question everything said that sounds like a bioweapon. It does. That was 10 years ago. They also talk about the sugarcane mill in Texas firing people because they're testing the blood of the people coming across the border to work here on the American side and there on the Mexican side. And they were firing people who had the creatine in their blood. So I don't know if it's like passable from person to person. But if your blood showed CKD signs, they fired you and sent you back over that border. So it may be contagious. Do you see what I'm saying? And then Ember asked, what about the 100% pumpkin you can get in a can? No, you need pumpkin seeds, not pumpkin meat. It's two different things, sweetheart. You need the seed. And then the scary thing about this is the sugarcane. There was a sugarcane mill in Texas. There was one left. They closed down last year due to the drought. That video I showed you was 10 years old. I will link it in the description. You can go watch the entirety of it yourself. Now where's the rest of it? Because y'all, I have so much to show you guys. I really do, because you've got to hear this. What is this one?
Really sinister theory on the origins of Lyme disease.
Oh yeah. Okay. Let's keep going. By the way, I do not get paid for my videos, and my husband is only able to work part-time due to his serious health issues they diagnosed him with. If you'd like to support our channel, you can look at the top of comments at the end of this live. If you send even $1, $10, $100, whatever you felt led by the Lord to do, I will give you our newsletter and link you into our Zooms.
Really sinister theory on the origins of Lyme disease, one of the fastest growing infectious diseases today in North America. And that theory is that Lyme isn't some natural disease that naturally evolved. Rather, that Lyme disease was essentially born from a Cold War biological weapons program. In other words, bioweapon facility that accidentally escaped into the public. Number one, did I get that right? And number two, why should our audience care about this conversation today?
A bunch of people got sick beginning in the late 60s around Lyme, Connecticut, which is just off Long Island, near New York City. And they got sick with a really strange set of symptoms. They were both neurological and crazy joint pains, giant swollen knees like balloons. Back then, sometimes they would name a disease after where it was first discovered. So the Yale rheumatologists called it Lyme disease. My theory is it was multiple organisms that got out of a military lab somehow. One of them might be the Lyme bacterium, Borrelia burgdorferi. The other one, according to the discoverer of Lyme disease, he told me at the end of his life, he believed that that was a weaponized germ that came out of his Cold War lab, and there was an experiment gone wrong. So it's complicated in that what we call Lyme disease is this spirochetal bacteria, but I think there's no proof that that was weaponized, but there is this other organism, which might be related to Rocky Mountain spotted fever, which Willy Burgdorfer, the discoverer, called Swiss agent. So that's complicated, but it helps to know that in the Cold War, the military weaponized ticks, stuffing them with various viruses and bacteria to create a bioweapon that could be dropped on our enemy, make people sick with a confusing set of symptoms that couldn't be diagnosed. So you could weaken a population and tie up their medical resources before you invaded the country. So that's the premise of it. And why should we care now? Because there were a series of experiments with these weaponized ticks during the Cold War. Sometimes the ticks with their evil germs got out, and that has a long-lasting effect on about the.
For example, this idea that America has a long history of creating bioweapons and dropping it on our enemies, is that established and understood as truthful in our history and origin as a country?
There have been rumors. Before I came along, the weaponization of ticks was not a known entity. I feel like I've gathered enough evidence that that is established now. So the way I got that evidence was, first of all, the Lyme disease discoverer told me that he weaponized fleas, ticks, and mosquitoes.
There it
during
is.
the Cold War for a couple decades. He said he stuffed plague in fleas, deadly yellow fever virus in mosquitoes, and then a grab bag of disease agents inside of ticks. So the way I know that is from Willy Burgdorfer. Later on, I got his lab notebooks and reports to the NIH in Fort Dietrich to prove that. I have a witness testimony from someone who worked for the CIA who dropped infected ticks on Cuba
right after the Bay of Pigs fiasco. And so that's the main proof, 2 eyewitness reports and multiple government documents.
We'll come back to our Cold War history and
the same people that are going to say this is not real would be the same people that told you and I that weather modification was also not real. Right? Right? You guys know what I'm saying.
Of time outdoors, and this year there's a new concern as a newer species of tick is appearing in Pennsylvania. And we want to welcome Dr. John Wallace, who is a professor of biology at Military University, to talk more about this. Dr. Wallace, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, so first, tell us about this species of tick that is now appearing in Pennsylvania, a little bit novel around here.
Well, you know, this time in Pennsylvania, it's I noticed probably in the last 8 years or so. It wasn't here before. It's just it's gotten to numbers that where we are able to see it more frequently on pets and other animals.
So we're actually showing our viewers right now a picture of this tick. So how can you spot a difference between this tick and maybe some other ticks we've seen before?
Well, this tick looks a lot like the dog tick, and so it has a couple of distinguishing marks on it that make it look like